In this video, we look at two key planning controls that influence the maximum floor area for a given site. These are floor space ratio and setbacks. We will first evaluate these controls as they apply under local development legislation. This is also known as a DA. Then we will repeat the evaluation only assuming a compliant development planning pathway. The purpose for doing this comparison is to find out what planning pathway permits the largest floor area and by how much. It's important to know this when starting out on a home renovation or rebuild, so you make an informed decision towards the most suitable planning pathway. Thanks for tuning in to Design Construct, where we deep dive into topics covering design, planning, construction, helping homeowners manage their new build better and set up for success. Okay, so the first place to come when evaluating a property is the Local Environmental Plan, or the LEP, which is found on the New South Wales Planning Portal. Select the planning instruments, then select your local government area. I'm evaluating a property in Sydney's Inner West. LEP maps are listed here. Choose floor space ratio, then find the sheet that contains the property to be evaluated. There is a key map at the bottom left to help you with this, and above this is the map's legend showing the FSRs. So FSR is a simple ratio of floor space to lot area. So an FSR of 0.5 applied to a lot of 400 square metres means your home can be no bigger than 200 square metres. The neighbourhood we're looking at is predominantly blue, which has an FSR of 0.5. Now if you look closely, you can see these lots have pink edges, which means there is an exception to the rule which is applied to these lots only. Now this exception is defined in the written legislation. The legislation can be accessed from the Planning Portal via this link. Now we search clause 4.4, item 2b, which defines the maximum FSR for lots with pink edging, which is actually 0.7. So for a lot of 380 square metres, multiplying by 0.7 equals 266 square metres. If you don't know the area of your lot, the Planning Portal is a link to an interactive viewer. This has a really great measurement tool. Search the property, turn on the cadastral layers, zoom in as far as you possibly can, and measure the area. Now let's repeat this exercise for a lot in Newcastle, which is about 3 hours north of Sydney. Searching Newcastle LGA, choose the FSR maps, select the current version of the map, and this is showing the inner Newcastle area where you can see the FSR generally increases around these main road corridors. We're going to evaluate a lot zoned yellow with an FSR of 0.9 and a lot area of 680 square metres. The maximum floor area would be 620 metres. There are also a heap of lots here that do not have any FSR specified whatsoever. They are shown white on this FSR map. In these instances, the maximum floor area would be governed by other controls such as front, rear and side setbacks, the height of the building, and overshadowing controls. Now this is a good segue into the next part of this video where we will be using setbacks to define the building location zone, then calculating the maximum floor area based on this area. Setbacks are specified in a development control plan, which is a document that supports and expands on the local environmental plan. Let's stay in Newcastle for a minute. We're going to search Newcastle DCP for housing. This DCP nominates front setbacks of 4.5 metres and side setbacks of 0.9. Now a building cross section is a good way to visualise the relationship between the building height and the side setbacks. Rear setbacks are 3 metres and 6 metres for ground and level 1 respectively. Now let me quickly trace this lot, draft the setbacks and calculate the area, which amounts to circa 900 square metres. Before we go any further, we need to make 4 more key adjustments to this floor area to comply with other criteria in the DCP. First, we need to adjust the front setback. In this instance, 4.5 metres does not apply. Instead, it must be the average of the adjoining properties. Second, we need to allocate 30% of the lot area to landscaping. I'll assume some of this area at the front and the remainder of the area at the back. The side passages cannot contribute to landscaping because they are too narrow and must be at least 1.5 metres wide. Third, I need to account for the thickness of the external walls because the definition of floor area in the LEP is from internal face to internal face. I'll assume a wall thickness of 350 millimetres. And finally, let's assume a double garage is intended at the ground floor, say 6 by 6 metres. Garages have a different classification in the BCA and are not counted towards floor space. So taking these adjustments into consideration, the final permissible floor area is 590 square metres, which interestingly reasonably aligned with the 620 square metres from the capped limit based on FSR. Of course, a full assessment would likely see further restrictions applied to this building zone, possibly due to overshadowing controls that seek to preserve minimal sunlight into adjoining properties. Up until now, we have been evaluating the floor area based on local development planning. Now let's assume we pursue a complying development pathway. This is state-based legislation, so the FSR maps wouldn't apply. Instead, FSR is set out in a table of rules that are summarised here. Let's look at our two examples. The inner west lot of 380 squares would have a floor area of 245 squares, which is an FSR of 0.65, which is less than the area permissible via DA, which was 0.7. The Newcastle lot of 680 squares would have an area of 335 squares, which is much less than the area permissible via DA that we just calculated to be 600 squares. For these two examples, we have seen that local planning legislation permits much larger homes compared with complying development, particularly for those larger and more suburban lots, such as the example looked at in Newcastle. But remember, DAs have a far longer assessment period and also an exhibition period where the public are afforded an opportunity to object. Complying development, on the other hand, is a quantitative assessment that can be determined in a matter of days. We have also seen some alignment in the maximum area when derived from a building location zone and compared with the numerical FSR. There you have it, folks. Thanks for tuning in to Design Construct. Please hit the like and the subscribe button, and I'll see you at the next video.